So like Tim said, we will be going through the subscriber functions today. But before that, let me quickly share first. Just a second. Okay. So is this clearly visible, Tim?
Yes, looks great.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Yeah, so we'll be going through the subscriber functions today, but before that, let me introduce the session itself first. We are on day 7. It says day 6 here, technically week 7 here. I think we skipped a session in the middle. But day 6 subscriber functions. However, we have a long series of SSJS tutorials and best practices and very specific use cases for beginners, intermediates alike. And this should be very helpful for whoever is just starting out with SSJS. Maybe you're an expert in AmpScript, you want to see what SSJS is like. They have some overlapping functionalities, so it's a good time to start. We're here on the 31st today. We have upcoming sessions with Greg for WX proxy and many more sessions, including hands-on build sessions that the regulars should be very familiar with by now. Talking about today itself, before we go through this use case of custom unsubscribe center or preference center, I have a few quick SSJS tips. I took my cues from previous questions that were asked in previous sessions, and also quick tips that I wish I knew when I was starting either SSJS or JS in general, because I don't imagine people who are maybe used to AmpScript knowing a lot of JavaScript, but if you do, then there are some tips there for you as well. And then we will go into the custom preference center, and in there we will go through these listed functions here. So we'll do list as retrieve, which retrieves all the publication lists that the subscriber is a part of. We'll see how we can unsubscribe the subscriber from the all subscribers list and also from each individual publication list. We'll also see how to update the subscriber attributes. So this, I guess, technically is a mishmash between a preference center and a profile center, but we'll not worry about that for now because the functionality can be used in either of them. I've also included delete here, so you can delete subscribers, subscribers using this SSJS subscriber functions, but we'll see if we get to there today. Okay, and we will, so after this tips, excuse me, after this tips, we will be going directly into Marketing Cloud. So there is not much slide in here. We'll be doing hands-on coding. We'll be developing all this functionality hands-on in the platform itself. Okay. So before that, let's review a few things about SSJS. The first thing is JavaScript is case sensitive, and so is SSJS. And I think this has been mentioned before, but please be careful when naming variable names and functions. If you already are a programmer, you might be familiar with these, but if you are not, this trips up a lot of beginners, and including the pros. Honestly, I can't count the times when I thought there was a bug in my code, some logical mistake, but turns out it's just uppercase versus lowercase. Okay, so just thought that was important enough to make the top of the list there. The second one is writing readable code matters, right? So please use descriptive variable names and functions names, and use functions whenever appropriate to modularize your code, to section out specific logic of your code into nice chunks. And we'll be seeing some of this in the hands-on part. So don't worry if you don't fully understand what I mean by them yet, but please do let me know at the end of the session if it's still unclear. This third one is especially for people who might be used to JavaScript and coming in from maybe a web development background, like I did, SSJS uses the ES3 version of JavaScript, which was introduced in 2009. So it's kind of old. So verify that your syntax works before using any modern JavaScript syntax. So if you are used to using arrow functions, let, const, things like that in JavaScript, they will not work. And the fourth one comes from a question that was asked, I think, in the first session about libraries and core modules. So just wanted to quickly mention that libraries, for developers, libraries are just bundles of codes that are available for imports. So Salesforce has all these functions, right? Marketing Cloud has all these plethora of functions that are available for you to use, but they don't make it readily available because you might not want to use all of them, right? So they kind of want you to import them piecemeal. Or if you know, for example, that you use a lot of core library functions, then you import the whole library. But maybe there are use cases where you don't even use that. So there is no need to load them. That'll just make your code footprint bigger, right? So this is if you keep coding and if you go to other platforms, other stacks, then this becomes second nature. In SFMC, I don't think there is a way to create your own libraries, but generally in programming there is, and you would create libraries to chunk out your code even further than functions. And here in SFMC, I don't think I wrote that here, but if you want to modularize your code even further, you can use something called code resources. I don't think we'll have time to go through that today, but just wanted to mention that that is available. So code resources are these are features of Marketing Cloud where you can host your static content. So if you have JavaScript that you use in a lot of your web pages, or if you have CSS that you use in a lot of your cloud pages, then you can host them as a single file so that you don't have to keep rewriting the same code in every of your cloud page. Okay. So yeah, to do most things in SSJS, you generally just load the core library first. Platform library is also available, but that's preloaded, so we don't generally worry about that. And most SSAS functions that access the SOAP data, so for example, subscriber data or account data, things like that, they are wrappers around AMP so they are syntactic sugars in a way. And so this make it easier for you to extract those data, but they are using AMP underneath. And since they are wrappers, they have a performance overhead. So AMP is generally faster in those specific cases. And WS proxy is something that allows natively accessing those data without worrying about wrappers. And future speakers will go in detail about what WS proxy is and how to use that. Okay. So that is all I had. There must be many more that I couldn't think of for this session, but we will bring them to you as we go through the session. So that said, let's go into the Marketing Cloud and start building these subscriber functions. So to do that, I first have a cloud page set up. Sorry, I had to restart earlier. So now I need to re-log in. Okay, to see what we're dealing with here. Let's work. Oh, that's weird. I just logged in though. Okay, sorry about that. Let's see the skeleton cloud page we have to write our SSJS. Technology does not like me today. Okay, while that loads, I'll explain this. So this is the cloud page we're using. As you can see, there's not much going on, right? So all we'll do is write some SSJS in this cloud page when this loads, and then output information in this debug or error as appropriate, rather than actually building out the functionality, if that makes sense, right? Because to build the functionality, we need to go into details on the front end part of JavaScript, which is not SSJS and which is not what we're focusing on. But I'll make sure to explain how that actually works if we're implementing even the front end part of it. I have no idea why this is not loading. Oh. I was in a different org and I still could see these cloud pages. That's weird. Okay, there we go. So yeah, this is all we have. And all the code that we write will go in here. And here we have this template SSS that we have all seen. Right, so we have a script that runs at the server, thus server-side JavaScript. And we're loading the core library because we'll be using some of that, some of its functionality. And that's all we have here. Down here, I like to create these paragraphs to output information rather than just plainly writing them, because if you use functions that write it, it will write it wherever the code is executed. So it might be on the top. It's not very visible, right? Creating these debug and error boundaries just makes it very easy to debug things. You can just see them here, plain and simple. And all you have to do to output anything in here is, let's comment this also for now. It's not really relevant for us. But yeah, all you have to do is just do variable that set value. We did go through this before, right? So if you want to set a variable's value that is in M script, so at you should use the platform variable set value to set any variable value. So we're saying let's set debug to be, say, test for now. Okay. Just to see that things are good to go. And then we'll publish this. So a quick tip here is that when writing SSJS, I would not trust this preview window, because some code that works in the actual published website does not seem to work in the preview window sometimes. And the same goes with CSS if you do front-end development. So publish the changes and then test them. Okay, so we see test here. And if you are in a production scenario, then you might want to keep a different org where you can publish without it being live to your clients, because we cannot trust the preview window here. Okay, so things looks like things are working, right? We could output that test string that we wrote in here. Not very useful, but gets us started. Okay, so we came in here, and this link, actually, you can see that there's a QS here. I came in through this link through an email that I sent to myself before, and that email links to this preference center. Okay, that's why I have this query string that embeds all of the information about me as a subscriber. So subscriber key, email, and things like that. So, for example, just a second. So what I can do here then is, instead of doing this, what I can do is first get the email, right? Or the subscriber key, I guess. So what we can do is var sub key is we can use attribute, right? So attribute dot get value. This is just like getting the attribute value in M script, but this is the JavaScript syntax, and we have the underscore subscriber key context variable or personalization string that is available to us because of the context. So if I just go in here, for example, let me show you the difference here, and then let's try and outputting that sub key instead of the test string. Okay, so I'll publish this again, and then we'll see the difference between having context and not having context. So for example, if I just click on this link, there is no query string, so there is no context. I see nothing in here, right? So everything is empty. But if I refresh my page, that has the context, meaning this is the URL that I get when I click on the email, the real emails preference center link. Then you see that my subscriber key, which is also my email, is output here. Right? So we are ready to start initializing a subscriber, because the only thing we really need in SSJS to initialize or to start dealing with subscribers is the subscriber key, which uniquely identifies a subscriber. So here, let's first go to the documentation and see what they say about subscribers. Okay, so this is the subscriber functions. They let you know that make sure you load the core library, because we need this for all subscriber related activities. And you have to, before you do anything like adding a subscriber, or like probably wouldn't be adding them in a preference center, but if you want to do anything else like removing them, updating them, getting their statistics, unsubscribing them, you have to first initialize that subscriber object, and everything else that you do then on would be on that subscriber object. So I'll just copy this code, go back into my cloud page, and then paste it here to initialize that subscriber. Okay, so I'm just going to call it sub object. This personal preference there, it's fine to just let it be sub. And you initialize a subscriber, but here you need to provide the key that we have, right? That was just an example. So you do subscriber.init, and then the sub key that we just got from the attribute. Okay. This will initialize the subscriber object, but it doesn't really do anything by itself. It's just initializing so that we could do further things with it. So one of the things we can do and try is to retrieve an attribute to see if our subscriber object actually did something, right? So you can imagine retrieving first name or last name and maybe personalizing the preference center, saying, hey, first name, for example. So here we have already done the first part to retrieve an attribute. So let's copy over the second line of code here and paste that. So attributes should just be that subscriber object. Oh, they have, and there's a sub object here. Okay, so that subscriber object dot attributes dot retrieve, and this retrieves all the attributes. Now, what format would this attribute be in? That's quite frequently a question, and there's only a few responses that are possible or that are practical, I'd say, and you can look it up somewhere, right? There will be documentations from various websites what this would be like and how to parse this, but I just like to do trial and error, because there's only 2 or 3 possibilities that I've found in my experience to be faster than going down the documentation rabbit hole. So what I would do is, I don't know what this is, so all I would do is, instead of sub key, for example, here, let's try just doing attributes, right, and see what happens. Right, so attributes can be one of 3 things primarily. One, it can just be a string. So whenever you do any API call, for example, say you are adding a subscriber and you're not expecting any result back. SFMC generally just sends a string of OK, saying that your API has gone through and everything is good. You don't need to know anything else because you're just adding a subscriber, for example. And sometimes you are retrieving a list of things. For example, we'll do this very soon. You're retrieving a list of all the publication lists a subscriber is on. And in that case, you would quite naturally expect a list of things, right? So most likely the output is an array, which contains a list of objects. And if you're retrieving something else, that might have some metadata associated with it. So for example, if SFMC also sends not only all the publication lists, but maybe it also sends metadata regarding how many lists the person is on, are they active or not? In that case, you would expect an object. So these are the 3 primary responses from APIs generally. And if you try a few, then you'll figure it out generally. And just from experience, you pretty much know the patterns once you use it. Yeah. But for now, let's try what happens if I just try to set the value of debug to be attributes. Okay. So I'll publish this. Yeah. See, now it says, yeah, it's not valid, but this is, I don't think it's anything to worry about. Let's see. Yeah, so if you try to print it, it told you that it's an array list, right? It didn't actually print the values of whatever is inside, but it just gave you the data type of that output, which is clearly an array list. Okay, so let's see. Generally, if you get objects like this, any type of objects, even an array is an object in developer terms, then what helps is stringifying the output. So if you stringify this instead, which pretty much means convert my object into a string format, and then you can maybe actually see what's inside. So let's see if that works. Yeah, so there we go, right? So if we just stringify it, now we know exactly what's in there. And we don't need to worry about the documentation of it. And as we expected, right, we're getting a list of attributes. Now we have an array, and the data type was also array list. So that makes sense. Now we can see how to actually parse this information, right? So what do I need? I need my first name. So here you can see that there's a bunch of things. So from what I can infer here, every attribute that you have in SFMC is in this one item of this array, right? So name, value, pair. Name meaning the name of the attribute, value meaning the value of that attribute. So for example, my first underscore name is empty. My last name, it has my last name as the value. There are also lead IDs, other things, but say we want to retrieve only the last name. So how would we do that? We have a bunch of, this is actually kind of tough here, right? Because I wish they just sent an object, because if they sent an object, then we could just do attributes dot last name, for example. Now I need to actually manually go through this, test if something is not empty, and then output that, which is kind of tedious. Right? So not very user-friendly response here. But if I want to get that, I know, and this might change if you change attributes on your platform. But for now, let's get the second item of the array, and then its value. To do that, we go here and then say, so sub last name would be my attributes, and we know this is an array. So you'll get the second item, which is the first index, and then I can get the last name of it, I think, right? Oh, sorry, the value of it. So let's see if that works. So instead of stringifying, what I'm going to do is actually, hopefully it's not confusing, instead of replacing that value, because maybe we still want to see this, I will print this in the error part instead. So I'll set the last name to be error for now, just so that it prints in the bottom block instead of the top block. Okay. So hopefully that works. Let's refresh. There we go. Right. So that's my last name. All we did was we inspected the response of the attributes array. We saw that the second item, which is the first index, was associated with that last name attribute, and we got its value. Similarly, if we wanted to get first name, then we would count. This is what I said about it being tedious, right? If it was just an object, then we should be able to do, for example, something like, there's probably a reason that this looks like this, but for now, I would like this to be something like this instead, right? So attribute dot last name or something like that. So that I can get anything exactly there without worrying about where it is, because this one will change if you add one more attribute to your marketing cloud. This will be pushed back, or I don't know if that is even ordered. So that just creates some maintenance issues. But anyways, we have retrieved attributes, right? So we have done something with the subscriber object. Now let's see if we can retrieve all the lists that they are in instead. Very similar workflow here. So I'm just going back to the. I am looking at another function here, and all I have to do is copy this line, which has a very similar syntax to what we had before. So list array is sub object, the same object that we initialized before. You don't have to reinitialize things. You can keep on using the same object over and over. And then the syntax is the objects lists dot retrieve. Okay. And then we can follow a similar pattern for printing. So I'll stringify the array because I am expecting an array of things. So let's see what this looks like. And then I'll comment this out for now. So I will publish it. And go back here. Okay, now we see that this is also a list, quite complex. So you see that it actually has it's a list of only one item, right? So this is just one item and it has a key of list that gives you all the lists. So let's do something like this instead of seeing all of these things. What I'll do is, instead of stringifying list array, I know that it's an array, right? So I'll get the first item from the list array. And then I also see that the only key in that object is list. So dot list. And that should give us all the information that's inside instead. Right. Oh, that is actually not true. Sorry, this is kind of hard to read, but this is the process, right? This is how you see the response and then figure out how to parse things. I see that it has a few objects that I've created data. Okay, never mind. So it has as many items in the array as there are lists that the subscriber belongs to. And then looks like they also include all subscribers. And they also include all private and public lists. So if you want to, if you actually want to populate your preference center with all the publication lists that the subscriber is on, you might want to go through all of these and filter out all the private ones, because you don't want subscribers to be able to unsubscribe or subscribe or in any way interact with these private lists, right? So for example, all subscribers. And maybe you want to keep one checkbox or a button that says unsubscribe from all, and then manually talk to all subscribers instead with that button. But for now, let's try to parse these and then get all the list names, for example. And if you look at any of this list, you see that there are a couple of things, right? So inside every list, there is a key of list, and then that has ID, and it also has a name. So I will try to get all the names instead of that whole big thing. So what we can do for that, and this is just a programming exercise at this point, because you would not really need to get all the names and concatenate them as a string in the real use case, but you might need to get all those names and populate your checkboxes, right? So that is where front end comes in. So you would pass in this list into the front end using the control. So I actually have some code for that here. Just didn't want to go too deeply into that. So for example, we have sublists as, say, your list objects variable had all that list that we just retrieved. Then you can pass on that that array of lists to the front end using this control syntax. This will pass in to the front end, and then you can parse it. You can create new checkboxes using regular front end JavaScript, so that it's very dynamic. So you're not hard coding the list that you want to show and all that. Yeah. So let's go back here. And now we can actually see that in just a minute. It just takes a bit, but for now, so let's say we make a variable, call it list names. Okay, and that can be empty in the beginning. And then we write a for loop. Oops, I did that again. I'm so used to writing let, but let doesn't work in Marketing Cloud because ES3. So we need to use var to 0, and then less than length. And the details of this, I'm kind of going fast here because it doesn't really matter. All we're trying to do is write a for loop that goes from 0 to however many items we have in the list array. That's why list array.length. And every time we're incrementing this variable by 1. And all I want to do is I want to add to that list name equals list names plus, I'll give it a demarcation. So that plus the new name. Okay, so every time I'll do, list array, I, and then what was the name? Dot list dot name, right? So dot list dot name. So here I am retrieving individual list name. Before doing that, maybe it's better to try it out just in the first one. So say I want to get the name of the first list. Then all I would do is list array 0 dot list dot name, and then see if that works. And I'll also, for the sake of time here, I'll also print the last name that we just created in the error part, and then publish together. So the debug should say all subscribers, because that is the first list in the 0 index, and we're going into the list and into the name. Whereas the list, not last names, list names should be a string that has all the list names from this loop separated by this random character that I wrote. Yeah. So if there are no errors there, okay, so it's the other way, but so debug has all subscribers because that's the first list, right? So list array, list name, and then the other one has all the names. So you can imagine that if we can do this, then we can also populate, excuse me, populate the checkboxes, right? So since I already have code down here that kind of does that, what we can do is instead of setting that list to be a debug variable, I can just set that to be list objects. It doesn't have to be list objects. I just happen to choose that variable name. So I'll just set platform dot variable dot set value, and then that variable, and then I'll give that. So we don't know what it exactly should be. So list objects. Yeah, I'll just set this to be our list array. So the purpose of this is just that I could have just done list array down here, but since I already had the code, just didn't want to touch this. But changing this to list array also works. Okay. We're just transferring variable value from the server rendered part, because this is never getting to the client. Right? This is going to be served in the server, and SFMC removes this script tag before sending the web page to the client, so that your secrets pretty much are not exposed. Right? This is backend code, but we need a way somehow to get these list array in the front end. Otherwise, you can't show them to customers. And then that is where this control syntax comes in. So hopefully nothing breaks here. Oops, it did break. Do a quick check, but not going to worry a lot about this. If because that's not really part of this. Okay, yeah, let's not worry. Something is probably incompatible here, but that is the process. I'm probably missing a variable name or something somewhere. Okay. So let's move on to the next item in the Zenda, which is unsubscribing the customer. So let's actually check my subscription status. We could also printed that here. So if we go back and copy all of this, remove all of this, and then see that array again. then we will notice that not only it not only has names, but it also has the status in each lists. Right? So you could be active in the all subscribers list, but maybe you are unsubscribed in a specific publication list. And you have all that information here. It looks like I'm active currently. So let's try and unsubscribe and then see if this still says active, which it shouldn't. So just to make it easier to see down here, what I'll do is I'll also add in the status of each list just next to them, so that we don't have to shift through all this syntax every time we want to check something. So all I can do is just add in another random character, and then in addition to that list.name, I'll also do list.status. So all subscribers. Oh, it's actually outside the list. So we don't have to do list. That's status. Okay, so yeah. So before we check that, sorry, before we write unsubscribe logic, let's quickly check that everything worked, because we need to verify our unsubscription. Okay, so you can see that all subscribers I'm active. I'm apparently unsubscribed in 2 of these lists, and I'm active in monthly promotions. These are the publication lists that I put myself in earlier. So let's go to all subscribers. Just want to show that the lists that I'm talking about. So I created these 2 publication lists and then sent myself 2 emails and associated the sends to these publication lists so that I am in both of them. And that also got me into the all subscribers, of course. And that's what we're seeing here. And customer preference center test, we don't have to worry about this. I think this was from previous demos, it just sneaked in here. But okay, so let's go back to our documentation and look at the unsubscribe function. It's very simple, just like before. All you need is the subscriber object that we already have, and all you need to write is .unsubscribe, right? Very simple to unsubscribe. So if I go back here, and then after doing all of that, actually let's keep it here. So yeah, so status equals to sub object of unsubscribe, and let's see what I'm going to remove that list array output. So we don't really need all of this, because all we needed was the name of the list and the subscription status, which we have gotten down here. So remove that from the output, and I will print the status instead. So let's see what happens when I unsubscribe myself. So it would be nice to actually associate that unsubscribe event to a button. You can very easily do that using forms and posts. That could be it's for another session, but again, I'm not connecting the front end to the back end. So immediately when we load this page after publishing, it will unsubscribe me. So there is no action that I'm performing currently. So when I refresh, you can see that it said okay. And this is the output that I was talking about earlier. When you're unsubscribing someone, I don't expect any output, right? I don't expect any objects. I don't expect any lists. Some APIs do send the person that was unsubscribed, but SMMC doesn't. It just sends okay, which is good enough for our case. But you might have noticed that nothing actually changed here. That's because when I loaded the page, that is when I unsubscribed myself, but I had already gotten the list before that, right? So I actually got the old values of the list before the unsubscription happened. That's why these are not updated. So to actually update this, I need to refresh the page. And I'm trying to unsubscribe somebody who I just unsubscribed. So let's see what happens in the debug part. Oh, it still says okay. But now you can see that I'm unsubscribed from everything, right? So all status are unsubscribed, and we can validate that here in the all subscribers list. If I search my email address, and then taking a while. This is the one with the subscriber key. That's the same as my email, and you can see with the red icon there, or here, this unsubscribe is today, right about now. So that worked. I do have to say here though, This is probably not best practice if you want to do unsubscriptions, right? There is something called log unsub event in AMP script that is generally preferred over these methods, because that actually logs an unsubscribe event in the platform rather than just unsubscribing them. This is like point and click unsubscribe. You're not touching anything else in the platform. You're just changing that subscriber status in a way. But if you actually want to formally, in a way, unsubscribe, then you would use log unsub event. Okay. Which I think we have gone over in the AMP script bootcamp part. But it's good to know that this functionality is here, and who knows what use case will demand it. So it is here, and it works. Yeah, I think that should be it for today. As we're closing in on time, we could have done more things here, right? You can see, and you can practice doing these things if possible, or maybe in the hands-on sessions later that we can update. So we could update the subscriber that we just unsubscribed and set their status to active again. So we could do that. We could get statistics on the subscribers, so their clicks, open statistics. Observe is pretty much, it's probably not used in these pages because, again, we're not really adding subscribers from these preference pages. So yeah, that is it. Let us know if you have any questions. Try to answer them now, but if we can, then we'll make sure to follow up in the Slack channel or leave them in the slides when we post them for public access.
Thanks so much, Sandesh. This is all clear and informative. I see one question here: how to unsubscribe from a specific list instead of all lists?
Right. I actually did have that plan, but we didn't have time for that. So what you need to do, the steps is, we already have all the lists, right? And the lists have IDs. So to unsubscribe from a particular list, maybe I can actually just share the documentation page here. Just a second. Things keep disappearing from my face, but okay, here it is. So to do a list level unsubscribe, which is kind of the point of getting the lists, right? You actually need to use some list functions. So you can do let's see, subscribers, retrieve, here it is, right? So this is going to be the syntax. So you will initialize, instead of initializing a subscriber, you will initialize a list. And let me get back to this, but you initialize the list, and then you use the syntax, that list, that subscribers, that unsubscribe, and passing the subscriber key. And you can do this for every list that's checked, for example, right? Initialize that many lists and then unsubscribe them from whatever they check. The quick thing I wanted to mention is that, surprisingly, this is actually not the list ID, which is very confusing. This is something called the customer key of the list. And to get this, there is no way to get this from the UI, as far as I know, until now. So you have to actually do another call. So you have to do list.retrieve first using that ID. So you retrieve a list using the ID that you just got from the subscriber object. And then that retrieval, that output from SFMC will have the customer key. Use that customer key to then unsubscribe that person from that list.
Spot on. That's all helpful, Sandesh. And one more question: is there a SSJS function for opting out from the mobile?
I actually haven't had a lot of experience with that, but as far as I know, I don't think so. Which is
Even I
unfortunate.
don't recollect.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think so, but I would have to double check on that.
Yep. I think those are the questions that we have. Thank you very much. And everyone, if you have any questions, we have few more minutes. Please feel free to post them in the chat window or unmute yourself and ask them directly. So in the meantime, we do not have the hands-on session this Thursday. We do have more dreaming event happening. So if you haven't already registered, it's good time. There's still some slots available. I think virtual, it's all free. So you can go ahead and register and watch out all the sessions. Tim is talking and also many other speakers are presenting on some important and helpful topics. So in order to have some time for all of us to attend those sessions as well, we do not have the hands-on session this week, but next week again we will resume the hands-on sessions as usual time, Thursday 8 to 9 a.m. And the next week, the SSJS session is by Greg. So he's going to talk all about the WS proxy. I don't see any other questions, Sandesh. I think we can wrap it up. Thank you very much. This is all
Okay.
informative. And
Thank
thanks,
you.
Tim. And thanks, everyone. Have a good one. Take care.
Thank you.